Hello everybody and welcome to Psychology 341. This is Cognitive Psychology. I am your host, Professor Daniel. Thank you so much for hanging with me this semester. So what I want this video to be is basically kind of a breakdown of what to expect in this class, and then the second half of this video will be how to navigate Plato in case you are unfamiliar with how to use Plato. So first half is kind of like exploring, here's what you can expect in this class. The second half, here's where to find it online. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So what I want to do first is talk a little bit about what this class is, and specifically talk about what cognitive psychology is. Usually whenever I post this question, in a classroom, I get a lot of different kinds of responses, but the common themes that I usually see is that people will say that is that the study of the mind, or is that the study of the brain? And I think that both of those are great answers, and in a lot of ways they're kind of the same, that those are kind of getting at the same mechanisms. So what cognitive psychology is, and we'll talk more about this in chapter 1, is all about kind of the internal processes of our behavior. So where does our behavior come from? Why do we do the things that we do? And what are the mechanisms that allow those things to happen? So that's what we're going to be looking at this semester. But a couple of the questions that you can expect us to answer could be, for example, does human memory have a storage limit to it? Or does our memory last forever? So we'll be talking about that in the memory chapters when we get there in the middle of the book, in the middle of the semester. We can talk about why classes should probably only be about 15 to 20 minutes long. Most of our classes are, an hour long or an hour and a half long. Is that exactly what research shows us it should be? That we will be talking about in chapter 5, which is all about attention. We'll talk about non-human learning in some cases. So, for example, can pigeons, of all animals, establish what makes good art versus bad art? We'll learn more about that in the chapter on object recognition. We'll talk about why we are so bad at understanding statistics. Not just people in college, but just people all over, right? We see this all the time in the news where people are misunderstanding polls or what numbers mean and how they are represented. So we'll talk about that in the decision-making chapter. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about language. So for example, for bilingual speakers, I know some of you are out there watching right now, what language do bilingual speakers think in? For people that are a monolingual speaker, that's usually a kind of interesting question. Something they hadn't really thought about. Do people think in the first language that they learn, or do they think in the second language, or is it a combination of the two? We'll be talking more about that this semester. So here is a quick look at our textbook. So this version right here, the gold one, this is the most recent edition, and this is the 6th edition, which is a little bit older. There might even be a newer edition than this. I'm not sure yet. But because they seem to come out every couple of years. But I do want to say that it is okay to check out the previous editions. It's not a big deal if you do. For the most part, these books are almost identical. The only real difference that I see is some of the figures are updated, so some of the pictures are better, and some of the explanations are a little bit better. But overall, this is mostly the exact same content, and more importantly, pretty much the exact same chapter organization. So chapter 1 in the old edition is the same as chapter 1 in the new edition, and so on. So it is okay if you get the older edition to save some money, save quite a bit of money actually. But I will say, to beware that I am going to be working from this version, from the 7th edition. So there might be a couple of differences that you spot, and I'm just letting you know to kind of be cautious about that. I could be wrong, but I don't think that in the exams there's not going to be anything that you were like, oh, that wasn't in my edition, because I try to make sure that they are covered. The things that I ask you about on the exam. On the quizzes, there might be some more idiosyncratic things specific to 7th edition. But if you are interested, there are also a number of books that are not going to be required in this class that we will be talking about throughout the semester, and probably the one that we'll be talking about the most later in the semester is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. So Thinking Fast and Slow is very easy to read. You can find it right here. You can find it at any bookseller pretty much. Usually either in the psychology section, sometimes even in just kind of like the general science sections. or even the economy sections. But this is an easy to read book. You don't have to be a psychology major to pick it up and to grapple with it and to understand it. You could pass it off to your parents and they would get it really well as well. So it doesn't, it's not like super technical or whatever. But it is written by Daniel Kahneman, who was one of the most influential researchers in all of cognitive psychology, but especially in decision making. He is the name in decision making. I used to require this for my cognitive psychology class, but I'm not doing it this semester just based on the feedback that I got from other students. It was just too much reading because, hey, that book is like 500 pages, which you don't want to add to your other classes or to our textbook. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about the way that I approach the classroom. Just a little bit about me first. This is a picture of me, as you can see here. This is my faculty picture. But there are a couple of other courses that I teach, and you may have taken a class with me before. I teach Psych 101, and I teach all of the classes in the Research Methods sequence. So Research Methods 1 and Research Methods 2, and also Statistics in the middle there. So I teach those. You may know me from that. You may know me from Sensational Perception, because that is also another basic processes course that you have to have for your major requirements. You have to have 2. So you may have seen me from there too. And if you have seen me from there, then that's good news for you, because there's a lot of overlap between this class and Sensational Perception. Mostly in regards to object recognition and visual perception, which is kind of the first chunk of our class. And then it really goes into totally different directions after the second or third week. Or you may have seen me from a couple of different capstones like history and systems or memory. But my specialty is cognitive psychology. So even though I teach all these other classes, this is the class that I feel most at home. This is the class that is my wheelhouse. This is the stuff that like whenever people in the department refer to me, they usually call me the cognitive psychologist of the department, because that's my background, that's my training, that was my research, my dissertation, all that other stuff is in cognitive psychology. And in particular, my specialties are in memory and attention, and so I will probably give those chapters a little bit of extra love because those are the ones that I have background researching and have published papers on. And the reason why I bring all this stuff up to you right now is just to give you an idea of the kind of perspective that this course has. So for example, you'll see, if you look at these classes, basically I think the kind of narrative that it tells about me is that my background and my interests are more in kind of the research side of things. It's much more in the kind of the detail-oriented, technical, nitty-gritty side of psychology. I really love that stuff. I don't really do a lot of research with like abnormal psychology or personality or social psych, and so a lot of the questions that people have about abnormal psychology, I might not be able to answer, but I'd be very happy to look up that stuff for you. But that's not my expertise. But I also want to point out that I have several years' experience using the online platform as a method of instruction. And the reason why I bring this up is because sometimes whenever I take classes with students, one of their biggest fears is like, oh, I don't know about online classes because I feel like I don't learn as much out of them. And I totally understand what you mean, because the past couple of years I've also been a student. I've been taking classes on the side in a different department, not in psychology, just to kind of feel what it's like to be a student and to see what other instructors are using, and for me to see what I feel like works and what doesn't whenever professors are using online formats. And so I bring that up because what I'm saying is that I've got some background in online teaching. You're in good hands. I'm not just going to ask you to read the book and take an exam. I'm gonna try to basically my philosophy here is to take what I do in the classroom and find a way to translate that online, where you're getting the pretty much the exact same experience, except you can't directly ask me questions, but you can pause me, which is just as effective or just as good, I think. All right, so that's just a little. That's too much about me already, but I will. One last thing I will say is that I am receptive to feedback. So if you have any kind of feedback, feel free to let me know. You can email me and let me know what's working for you in the class, what isn't working for you in the class, and I am usually pretty open to that, and I like hearing that stuff because I need to know what works best for the class as I am going on, because sometimes on this side of the camera it can be a little bit harder to see what's working and what's not working. Alright, so with all that being said, I will say that this class is going to be a lot of work. We got a very short time frame to work on these things because we have about 6 weeks of class because we're doing a summer session. So it is going to be a lot of work, but I don't think that it's going to be especially hard work. So there are going to be lots of assignments. So each week you can expect several different assignments, and I've tried to put thought into each of these assignments to think about different ways that you can think about the material. So you're going to have a quiz, you have a discussion, and you'll have an exam, all kind of targeting different modalities of instructions. That way you can be thinking about the material in new ways. So it's not intended as a punishment. In fact, it's just the opposite. I believe in multiple grading opportunities, so that way if you don't do well on the first exam, for example, it's not going to doom you because you'll have more opportunities to raise your grade. Just letting you know up front that there's going to be a lot of assignments. But I want it to be fair. So I want it to be an accurate reflection of what you've learned. I don't like nitpicky or tricky questions, even though I really like learning about that stuff. It's not something that I believe that you should be tested on. So I'm not going to be asking you, what does B.F. Skinner's initials stand for? Or what article was published in 1952? I'm not going to be asking you those kind of specifics. The way that I see our class is a little bit collaborative, or basically I think of myself as being on your side, and it is my goal to try to get you to learn as much about this stuff as you can, or as much as I can get you to learn. And so because of that more collaborative kind of nature, I kind of see us as kind of like we're on the same team, and I'm kind of the coach of the class, and I'm trying to give you, the team, all the tools that I can think of that will help you defeat the class content, so you can defeat, whatever our rivals, which are going to be the cognitive class, the cognitive football team or whatever. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So if there's anything that you can think of that might be helpful to help you learn how to take on this stuff, let me know. So for example, I will give you like a study guide, for example. So I'm going to try to give you everything that I can so you can ace this class, but I can't step out on the field and fight the course content for you. I want you to be able to play against them and to win on your own. So a little bit about communication and reaching out and things like that. I'm best reached through email. So if you send me an email, I get that fastest and soonest. You can send things through the Play-Doh Messenger, but I don't always get those immediately. Sometimes it can take a couple of days for me to see those and respond to them. So that's why I usually encourage that people use the email here, tdaniel@westfield. Or you can also call me. This is my office phone. If you call me, I'm not in my campus office right now because it is summer. So this will take you to my campus phone, and you can leave a voicemail. That voicemail comes directly to my inbox, so I can hear exactly what you have to say, and I can respond to you there as well. So it's okay to leave voicemails. And here are my office hours. If you want to stop by during my office, we can do that over Zoom. Just let me know if these times don't work for you. Let me know what times do work for you, and I'd be very happy to make time out of the day to meet with you, talk about the class. Let's talk a little bit about the different assignments that we have here. So we have 4 different kinds of categories of assignments. We have exams, quizzes, discussions, and research quizzes. So let's look at what each of these things are. The exams, these are going to count the most out of all of our different assignments. There's going to be 4 of them that you're going to get throughout the semester. They're going to be a mixture of multiple choice and short answer. So basically, you'll be able to answer multiple choice, but then you'll also have an opportunity to respond to things in basically kind of like a short paragraph. So that is part of our exams. And these are going to cover different things from our class. So they're going to cover the textbook, they're going to cover the lecture videos, they're going to cover the readings and things like that. So the final exam is going to be cumulative. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But that final exam is going to be heavily focused on the last few chapters, and then kind of maybe half of the final will be kind of more cumulative things. But again, you'll have a study guide for that, so you'll know exactly what I'm looking for. The quizzes, these are going to be more frequent. So these are going to be due Sunday by the end of the day. So pretty much each week you'll have some quiz due. Usually there'll be 3 quizzes due each week because that's about the pace that we have to keep up here. These are all going to be found online through Plato. They're all multiple choice. You got an hour to knock them out. And I hope what I hope for you is that you will read the textbook ahead of time and then take the quiz. So the quizzes are pulled straight from the textbook, but if you read ahead of time, then it will show you what areas are a little bit trickier, so that way you can reach out to me and let me know, if you have any confusion. And it can also help you target the areas that are more advanced, so you can spend a little bit more time studying that for the exam as well. But you do have an hour, so with that being said, if you are pressed for time, you probably could just open up the book and open up the exam at the same time and kind of, go through it, kind of skimming it to try to find the answers. You can do that too. All right, then we have the online discussions, and the online discussions are going to be posted also on Plato. They're also going to be due Sunday by the end of the day, and these are generally going to be a mix of kind of open-ended questions and also some cognitive testing. And the reason why I include these is because these are a little bit more hands-on. So kind of you'll get to feel what it's like to take one of these tests, or to be in one of these experiments, or to see, like these different memory tests or these facial recognition tests and things like that. So it's kind of a new, cool way to kind of get this information without having to just read about it or learn about it in a video. Whenever you're posting the discussion here, basically you want to have a post, and you also want to have a response to a classmate, and you can find a rubric online for this. I'll show you where to find that in just a little bit. But basically, as long as you're making a post and it's thoughtful and is including, material that we've learned about from the book or whatever, then you'll probably get full credit for it. If you don't really, spend that much time, if you don't really relate it to other class concepts, then you might not get full credit for it. All right. So the final piece here is going to be the research quizzes. So these research assignments are worth 10% of your grade, and these are going to be 5 short quizzes you can find online about different research articles that are all related to the content that we're talking about each week. So these are going to be between 10 and 12 questions. Half of them are going to be multiple choice, and then half of them are going to be something kind of like fill in the blank. And the reason why I have these assignments is because, as I mentioned, my background is much more like kind of research focused, but also one of the goals of the basic process classes, which is what cognitive psychology, sensation perception, learning, physiological psychology, what they all have in common is that we want students to be learning more about how to take out information from scientific articles and to promote scientific literacy in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So basically, we're going to be reading these research articles, pulling in the information out of them, and getting quizzed on it. So that is part of our class too. Finally, if you have any accommodations through the Bernacco Center, just let me know. I'm very happy to work with you on any concern you have. For makeup policies, I don't typically have a makeup policy because all these assignments, as you'll see, will be posted well in advance. You'll generally have about a week early, each week. You'll have those assignments early. So you'll have at least 10 days to do each assignment because they will open up early for you. But if you have any concerns, if you got sick or anything like that, just send me an email. Let me know. Sooner the better, so that way we can figure out a game plan on how to tackle these things. And then finally, there's the zero tolerance policy for plagiarism on exams and discussions. And because this is online, I know that it's really, really easy to sometimes find answers online. With that being said, it's okay. Like if you're taking an exam, it's okay by me, for our class. If you're reading something and you get stuck and you're like, oh, I don't remember this, it's okay if you Google it. That's fine. But the thing that I will warn you about is that if you do that, make sure that whatever you learn, whatever the answer is you have, that you are digesting it and you're putting it into your own words. Because I can't tell you how many times I've given people zeros because they just copy and paste, or they just kind of, change a couple of words in their responses here. So it's not really their work. They're not really demonstrating what they've learned or what they've remembered about the class content. So if you ever get stuck where you had to do that, you're looking online, you found an answer, it jogs your memory and like, okay, I want to use this, but I don't want to get dinged for plagiarism. It's always better to just let me know, like, hey, I used this website, as a reminder, or I use this website as a source, because that's what other scientists do, right? So just don't pass it off as your own. Just let me know where you found it, and then it's, then we're cool. And then also don't forget about office hours. You can always reach me through that. All right, so let's get into the first week of classes. So I'm going to jump over here to our course. Where is it? 1 second. All right, here we go. Whoops, I hit the wrong one. So I'm going to quickly go through where to find our assignments and our content. This is assuming you've not really used Plato before. So you're going to go over here to Cognitive Psychology, click on that, and I'm going to enter student preview. So you can. This should be what you see pretty much for the first week of classes. The first thing you're going to see whenever you log in is the announcements. I'll probably have 1 announcement or 2 announcements per week. Usually one that's going to let you know, or as a reminder that assignments are coming up and they're due, and then maybe one at the beginning of the week to kind of introduce you to the incoming chapters there. So be on the lookout for those. Here you can find communications, so you can find information about where to find me, how to contact me here in the communications bumper. You can find our course calendar here on this part. This is the same thing you'll find in your syllabus. And speaking of your syllabus, if you go to syllabus and rubrics, you can find here there's a link that's going to take you to our syllabus, which looks like this. So here is our syllabus, and you can see our summer calendar. We only got 6 weeks, and you can see how much content we have to cover each week to make sure that we cover a semester's worth of content. So you can find that there. And then, additional information about different assignments, things like that. You can find all that stuff on Plato. You can also find the discussion rubric that I was telling you about. So if you want to know what it takes to make 100 in a discussion, you can find that there. This video that I'm recording right now, I'm going to plug it in right here, so you don't see it right now, but it will be there. And then we can jump straight into Chapter 1. So Chapter 1, which is going to be for this week, basically, we got each week you're going to see basically the same kind of structure. So you'll see the quiz up top, the discussion then you'll probably find the chapter slides, and then the videos that I have recorded for this class. So you can find all that stuff there. Yeah, so I like classes to be predictable and organized. So that way you know exactly where everything is each week. So each week you can expect, each chapter will kind of be laid out in this way. The way that I recommend usually targeting these things: reading the book first, then going through the videos. So watching the videos, and then maybe doing the discussion, and then maybe doing the quiz, like something like that. That kind of workflow. But I included these up here at the top because these are the assignments and these are things you get graded on. You can find our research quizzes over here in the research quizzes section. Again, I will remind you when those things are due, but you'll find that each of these has an article attached to it. So you can kind of see that for our first research quiz, we're going to be learning about inversion effects in the expert classification of mammograms and faces. Very, very complicated stuff, but very exciting, very interesting stuff. So you can find that there. And that's where the quiz is. And then finally the exams, you'll be able to find those as I post them here in the exam section. And that's pretty much it. So you can find your grades here. I'm going to try to keep grades as current as possible. You'll know exactly where you stand in the class by looking at your current average. So your current average, that's going to tell you exactly where you stand in our class with the things that I have graded. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. All right, thank you for tuning in. This was quite a long video, but had to get a lot of stuff off of our plate. So make sure one of the first things you do is actually you could do the Chapter 1 discussion right now, because you don't need to do any readings for it. You don't need to do any videos for it. But you can find that there. And also our first chapter quiz is going to be over Chapter 1 of the textbook and also parts of our syllabus. So be sure to check that out too. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you later. Bye.